So throughout the homeschool year, as I see a fun idea or something that I would like to try, I usually put those ideas in the notes app of my phone to think about later. Well, this past year, the list was long. There is a lot I want to do. Every year it's the same thing.
Oh, this is so beautiful. Oh, that looks like fun. Ooh, how can I add that into my homeschool? It's so pretty.
Curriculum, you guys, it's like this enchanted siren. It lures you in with the promise of beauty and joy and a better life. And then it turns on you, becoming a burden. That is sometimes just too heavy to carry. It's the burden of either,
this isn't what I thought,
or,
this is too much.
So today I'm going to focus on, this is too much. And I'm preaching to myself. Rachel, are you listening?
But what?
No.
Okay.
Listen.
Okay, I'm listening.
Sometimes you're only a month into the school year when you realize,
this ain't working for me.
so how can we plan our school year without over-planning?
Rachel, listen.
Without over-planning and without buying too much. Have you ever heard other homeschool moms talk about,
Here's the curriculums that I never used.
or seen those YouTube videos where they're like, the mid-year update, here's what we've done and here's what I haven't gotten to yet. I've been guilty of that, you guys. Over-planning is a very common homeschool mama tendency. There's so many ideas out there, so many ways of doing things. I mean, at a homeschool conference, I love a good homeschool exhibit hall, but I will be the first to admit that I'm also easily tempted there. Comment below. Are you easily tempted by homeschool curriculum? Do you also have Squirrel Syndrome when it comes to seeing that shiny new object? I can tell from my channel and the views that I get that you all love a good curriculum review video. I mean, I do too. I want to know how it works. I want to know what the scope of it is. I want to know what it looks like on the inside. I want to make an informed decision. I want to know, is this the magical curriculum that's going to turn my unmotivated and cynical teen into that dutiful, studious, and responsible bookworm that I always thought homeschool children should be? There are many times where maybe
I'm just window shopping. I'm just curious what's out there. Are there any new curriculums?
I don't need more curriculum, and yet I'm shopping. It seems innocent, right? Because we're shopping for a homeschool? But if we already have tons and tons of curriculum that we've never even used, are we really being good stewards of our money? I mean, I have to say, I have also felt that conviction. I have to check myself. I have to keep focus. And it can be difficult because I'm watching a YouTube video and I feel like I'm constantly being sold a new curriculum or something else that I should buy. There's always something new popping up that makes me wonder.
Is this the one?
There's always something pretty popping up, right? Who understands this plight? Please. I have been here so many times, okay? And I'm not perfect in it, but I do feel like I'm getting better. So here are the steps that I take to avoid the curriculum FOMO. Because I understand my tendencies, I actually do not like confirming my curriculum decisions until the summer. I know everybody else is doing them in the springtime because that's when all the sales are. But I like to finish my school year. If I start thinking too much about next year's curriculum, I don't want to finish this year's. I know, I've seen memes out there that say this. I know this is a homeschool mom tendency. I don't like to always confirm my curriculum early. One year, because I had the YouTube channel, I kept seeing all these videos coming out. Here's what we're using for next year. And I felt pressure. Like, I have to make these decisions right now because my audience wants a video. But I learned that year in particular because I changed my mind. I bought stuff and then I changed my mind. I feel like if I wait until the summertime, it gives me time to mull over things and really settle on what I want to do. Because there's always something else that might catch my attention. So, what do I do to avoid temptation and curb my lustful desire to buy all sorts of new curriculum? Okay, first thing, I mentioned I use my Notes app. If I see something that I think is a cool idea, I dump it right in the Notes app. It's in a list. It's out of my brain. I will look at it later. But I've gotten it off of my chest, and I won't constantly be thinking about it. It won't overwhelm me because there's so many ideas out there. If I don't put it in the Notes app, then I will be thinking idea upon idea upon idea upon idea. So it helps me to just get it out of the way until I'm ready to deal with it. The next thing that I do is I evaluate how last year went. Did my days seem too full? Did it seem like I tried to do too much? Did I end up cutting things? Now, having said that, I will say your days from year to year, some of them won't change too drastically, but there will be years of transition where your days may look very different than the year before, and that's hard to plan for. Experience helps you with that, but I do have to say, once my son went into high school, my day looked pretty different than when he was in school with me. And then this past year, I thought my middle schooler would be more independent, but it turned out she still needs a lot of attention from me. So my days ended up looking very different than what I had planned for. But for the most part, you have to keep in mind, do you have a tendency every single year to end up cutting stuff? Maybe with that in mind, plan less. You can always add on if you want more later. And part of that evaluating how last year went is what curriculum to buy. So I'm not going to get too much into that. I did another video that I will link below on how to choose the best curriculum for your homeschool, but keep these things in mind. Is there a problem with what I've used? Because if it's not broke, don't fix it. So how did the curriculum suit you? Fix it if it's not working. Fix it if it's making you dread coming to the table, especially as teacher. If it is just not a curriculum you're enthusiastic about, fix it. Because the approach is stealing your joy, and you don't want that. You might fix it if you see a gap that needs to be filled, and so you need to look for something to fill a very specific gap that you're seeing in your child's academics. But if you only want to fix it because there's something shiny and new and pretty over here, caution, warning, stop, be careful. This is when you can get into trouble. Check out my Homeschool Mom guilt video where I talk about that. I have been there, friends. I had curriculum that was working and I changed it. And what I changed it to ended up being like a curse. I'll link that video below. The next thing you should think about is, what do you want your year to look like? Forget about what you think it should be. What do you want your homeschool to be? I've mentioned Todd Wilson before, I think in one of my most recent videos. He has so many just great quips that he says, but here's another one. He said, what would your homeschool look like if you didn't know what it was supposed to look like? That's how your homeschool should be. So get rid of all your preconceived ideas of what you think your homeschool is supposed to be. What do you think it should look like? Next thing to consider is, what are your non-negotiables? These are the things that we absolutely are doing, and maybe even daily. For our homeschool, it's reading, writing, arithmetic, and discipleship. I mean, Bible study, discipleship, that is the #1 reason why I'm homeschooling. For what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? That is my reason, friends. So that is a non-negotiable. But maybe a non-negotiable for you is art. Maybe you're very musical and you have this dream of creating a family band. I mean, what do you absolutely want to make sure you teach your kids? Maybe you enjoy sewing or quilting, and that's a skill that you absolutely want to pass on to your sons and daughters. You can make that a part of your homeschool day. The next thing I do is I make a rough schedule. I make a rough schedule of how my day might look with only these non-negotiables, okay? Because if your non-negotiables, if you've got 5 or 6 of them, that might be your whole day. And you can't add anything else. So what would your day look like if you only did the non-negotiables? You may not be a schedule person, but hear me out on this. This is called being realistic. You don't necessarily have to post a schedule and follow it to a T, but this is about determining how much time you have in a day. Will mom be ping-ponging in between children, or are your children independent and they can do a lot of things on their own? These are things you need to consider, but mom, your time in the day needs to be a huge consideration. The next thing as you consider your day, the next things to add into your schedule: lunch, recess, interruptions. You need to build that kind of slack time into your day. You might want to set aside time for chores. I have done this in the past. This past year, I didn't set aside time in my day for my kids to do chores. I just gave them at certain points in the day, these need to be done. So as they regulated their own schedule, they knew what chores they had to be done. But I didn't necessarily say, okay, morning chore time. But you might want to set aside 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the afternoon and give your kids designated chores. That should be part of your schedule. Do you want to set aside time in your day for your children to follow their own interests, to explore the things that they enjoy? The next thing you need to consider is, what do you want your week and your month to look like? Because there may be things that you don't do every day, but maybe there's something you want in your homeschool that you want done once a week. Or maybe there's something you want done in your homeschool that's only once a month. So not only do I kind of make myself a rough daily schedule, I make myself a rough weekly schedule and a rough monthly schedule. So considerations for this might be field trips. Maybe you want a monthly field trip. Maybe that's the first Friday of every month. Maybe you want regular nature walks. Maybe you can't do it weekly, but you could do it every other week, right? What day is that going to be on? What time in the day would that take the place of? And then the next thing you can ask yourself is there room for more? Well, I didn't plan for history, and I didn't plan for science, I didn't plan for music study, and I didn't plan for art, and I didn't plan for all these fun read-alouds that I wanted to do. So where are these going to go? So this is why a lot of people create morning baskets or the morning symposiums and things like that, where they can just loop all of these things that they can't necessarily do daily or even weekly, but they want to get to at some point. You might create a section in your day for everything else to go and create one of those loop schedules. You may just have a small loop that loops history and science. I mean, typically I try to do something around history 2 days a week and something around science 2 days a week, but there are many days where we don't get to either one. And so I just loop them. I try to alternate them. Well, which one? Or, even the loop, I don't even follow all the time. I just say, you know what, we've done a lot of history because we do it for our morning time also with early church history. So maybe this week I'm only doing science. But I have a section in my day that's kind of scoped out for that. But what's important to you? Maybe your family has a specific interest that doesn't fit neatly into the little homeschool schedule subject box. Maybe you set aside an hour a day for the family interest. Maybe you want to teach your children how to cook. Guess what? I feel like that could be science. Therefore, you don't need a shiny new science curriculum, right? You just need to set aside a time of the day where you're going to teach your children kitchen skills, cooking skills, food science knowledge. So keep in mind too, nature is science. Reading animal books can be science. Reading historical fiction can be history. You can use those topics for literature. You could use those topics for writing assignments. I mean, you don't even have to follow your language arts curriculum to a T. You can make anything a writing assignment. Hopefully you know enough about commas and capital letters and end marks to be able to help your kids with some basic grammar. Following a thought all the way through a paragraph. Use those sorts of topics as a way to let your children explore what they like. Make a presentation about it. My kids did a presentation when we did the insect unit for the Good and the Beautiful Science. My 8th grader at the time was given an assignment to do more of an in-depth study on an insect and give a presentation. Well, I let my younger two do it too, and they all made their presentations different, and it was so fun. Invited the grandparents over to come see it. My kids love giving presentations, so we try to do a few presentations a year just for that. But school subjects are not silos, you guys. They are all integrated. They're all related. Language arts is related to history, is related to science, it's related to God. They're not just one subject. They can be more than one thing. The pioneers were not thinking,
I need a science curriculum.
They read books. They observed nature. They simply made their food. I bet you've rarely thought of kitchen duties as being science, or that teaching your kids to cook involves math, right? Are you doubling a recipe? Can you triple a recipe? I've tripled cookie recipes many times. Whole numbers and fractions. These are good lessons here. It also involves chemistry. We have this one cookie recipe where you mix all the dry ingredients first and you set them aside, and then you mix the wet ingredients, and then you mix it for like 30 seconds, and then it needs to rest for 3 minutes, and then you mix it again and it needs to rest for 3 minutes. And it makes a difference in how the cookie tastes, because there have been times where we did it wrong. And where my son made the cookie recipe and he mixed it all together, and the cookies didn't taste the same. I think the recipe is from America's Test Kitchen. They actually explain the reasons why. I mean, you could make America's Test Kitchen and cooking science, because America's Test Kitchen explains the chemistry behind doing that. Have you seen those science experiments with cookies? Here's the cookie that used baking powder. Here's the cookie that used more baking soda. Here's the cookie that used more butter. Here's the cookie that used shortening, and how different those cookies look. So why isn't this good enough? What's wrong with watching a history documentary on TV versus reading it from a textbook or even a movie? I love the movie Gone with the Wind, and there is a lot of historical facts in that movie. I remember the first time, because I watched the movie a lot since I was a child, but I didn't necessarily know a lot of facts about the Civil War. And the first time, like after I had studied the Civil War in school, and I watched the movie and heard them saying 40 acres and a mule, and I was like, oh, I finally know what that means. I never understood what that meant before. Or when that one guy came back to Tara post-Civil War and he was a carpetbagger, like, oh, I know what that means. There's historical significance there. What did those things mean during that time? You can pull all of that out of some historical movies. Why were taxes
Sky high on Tara.
Reconstruction and the boom economy it created? Why do you suppose that happened? There are so many conversations that you could pull from movies, and so many things that you could explore further. And what about board games, you guys? Did you watch my day in the life of my high schooler? We have been playing so many board games. Board games, certain ones anyway, some of them involve strategic thinking, logic, thinking through, like think about chess, right? You're trying to think about how to trap your opponent and you're having to think ahead. These are skills, critical thinking skills, that will serve them later. I just know it. I mean, even math in games. Just think about how important it is for your younger children to play games just rolling the dice, because they're constantly, especially if they're rolling 2 dice, they're adding constantly up to the 6s, right? They're learning addition problems playing board game. I would consider, before buying new curriculum,
Before being swooned by the siren's call of the very pretty, shiny new curriculum.
do I already have curriculum on my shelf that I haven't used? Do I really need new curriculum? So going back to be good stewards of our money. There's always going to be something newer and prettier, but you have to ask yourself, is this something I need, or is it just something I want? Is it just something I'm lusting after? I know it sounds weird to say that, but we've got to be honest, right? And going back to how your day might look as you put that schedule together, ask yourself, if my days were too full, what would I cut first? And maybe that's the thing that you don't buy right away. Maybe that's the thing you just wait and see how your days go. Because if you're like me, it only takes a few weeks into my homeschool year before I start seeing what's gonna work, what's not, what I was not realistic about, or maybe what's changed in my child's attitude or what's changed in my child's needs that make how I thought my days would go not quite how my days are going. If you need to hold off on buying a curriculum, just highlight it in your notes app. It'll be there. You can buy it any time of the year. This is a biblical principle, you know, because Satan is the one who hurries you. He's the one who's always like, you gotta buy it now. You can't wait. Oh, there's a sale. You gotta do it. I like a good sale, and I have been swayed by sales in the past, but I also, I have to say more times than not, I don't care about the sale because of being swayed in the past and buying things that I didn't end up using. Satan is the one who's always like, you got to do it now, you can't wait. While God is the one who's saying, be still, be patient, decide carefully, don't feel rushed. You can buy curriculum all year long. You do not have to buy it right now. How do you choose the best curriculum for you? I mean, you're still gonna buy some, right? Well, check out this video right here that I just did. And for homeschool planning and tips, right here. Until next time, bye.